Hello guys, I'm Kirtana. Today I would be talking about unsupervised machine learning. Here, firstly, I would be discussing about what is unsupervised machine learning, and after that, I would be going through what are the main important unsupervised machine learning algorithms. What is unsupervised machine learning? Unsupervised machine learning is a type of machine learning in which models are trained using unlabeled dataset and are allowed to act on the data without any kind of supervision. Here, the data doesn't have any labels. The data set doesn't contain any labels, but the model needs to learn from its features that are present in the data. Like for suppose we are having an example here, uh, the machine the machine here uh, tries to learn on the data that we given. Here the data is a simple data of image classification. That is, here we are having some apples and some bananas. The machine sees what is the color of the apple and the color of banana. Those are different, right? So it specifies that point, and it takes them into a single cluster. Like the bananas are having yellow, are in yellow in color. They are having uh, another shape when compared to the apple. The apples are round. The machine sees all these features and group the similar objects that we have here. Here we are having apples are similar and bananas are similar, but these two are dissimilar from each other. We talk about more on this. These are basically clusters. We call them this as clusters. We see this afterwards. Now, first we will go through what is k-means clustering. Uh, in k-means clustering. First, what is clustering? It is the process of organizing into groups whose members are similar in some way. Uh, Before we have seen that the apples are similar and the bananas are similar, so we group those objects into a category. That particular grouping is called as cluster. And what is cluster center? It is the arithmetic mean of all points belonging to the cluster. Now here each point is closer to its own cluster center than the other cluster center. K-means clustering is a unsupervised machine learning algorithm where we need to tell the algorithm that we need these many clusters, how many clusters we want. According to that, the model clusters the data. If we want two number of clusters, then the model happily goes through the data and groups them into two. And if we want three, then it does that. But the model is not intelligent that these many clusters it could model. That doesn't happen in k-means. In k-means, we use expectation maximization algorithm to form the clusters. Here are some steps that would be followed while doing the k-means. First, initially that we said we need to decide how many number of clusters we want. So we decide on number of clusters, and after deciding on number of clusters, we select some random points as centroids. And after that, we assign the other data points to this assumed random point, and we maximize on the mean. By doing that, here I have an visualization. I would show that here we have 100 data points, wherein I want the data to be classified into 5 clusters. So I assigned five random centroids. After that, the random centroids, the data near to it are grouped to the group assigned to this random centroid. and it maximizes on mean, and at last these clusters are formed. This happens in k-means clustering. And to choose on k, we cannot decide every time by seeing the data itself that these many number of clusters I want. So what we need is an optimal number for k. For doing that, we have two methods. We have silhouette method and elbow method. In silhouette method, what happens is this the Python has the sklearn in Python has this functionality wherein we could uh, find the silhouette coefficients of each point that measure how much a point is similar to its own cluster compared to the other cluster. After having this silhouette coefficient, we take the average of the silhouette score for number of clusters. By doing this, we get the silhouette score for the clusters, and we can group accordingly. The silhouette score generally ranges from -1 to 1, and if we are very near to 1, that means that the cluster is similar to its own and dissimilar to its other clusters. That is the silhouette score, that is the number of clusters that we want. And if it is going nearer to -1, then we are grouping in a wrong way, or the data is somehow we are taking the model into a wrong way. So we need to remodel the data. And we are having another method, elbow method. Here we take an average of values and apply k-means, and find the average distance of each point in a cluster to its centroid and represent it in a plot. And we pick the value of k where the average distance suddenly falls. Here I will show you how it happens. Here, if you can see in k-elbow method, here we have a plotted number of clusters and the distance. If we can see that it suddenly falls at when k is equals to 3, it suddenly decreases. So the optimal number here is 3. And similarly in silhouette, what happens is we have an average score. We model the data for 4 clusters and 5 clusters. If we can see here, when we have 4 clusters, the data here are all the clusters are having score more than the average score. So this is the kind of cluster that we want. Here, if we see the cluster is having less than the average score, so we don't want these kind number of clusters. We definitely want this kind of number of clusters to be there to be chosen for our k-means clustering. After that, hierarchical clustering. What is hierarchical clustering? The word hierarchy is the name of the algorithm, suggesting it is a tree. It is a tree-like structure. Clustering of data happens in tree format. If you can see here, we are having the data of PQRST, and we cluster. We are having two types of hierarchical clustering: agglomerative and divisive. In agglomerative, what happens is we do a bottom-up approach. Here we are having PQ, we cluster them to, and after clustering them to, we cluster the PQ and RST to PQ RST. But in divisive, the reverse happens. Um, Hierarchical clustering has some steps to be followed. Here I have given the agglomerative. What we have discussed is bottom up approach before. That clustering algorithm steps I have written here. We assign the points to individual cluster, and we match the small distance point in proximity matrix and consider based on linkage chosen. Again, what we do is we calculate the proximity matrix after merging, repeat until you are remained with single cluster. We create, and after that we create a dendrogram. Don't get worried. I would be talking about the proximity matrix, and I will be also talking about the linkages and the dendrogram after this. What is a proximity matrix now? The proximity matrix is very simple to create. Here we are having a data of 5 students and their marks. Now what we do is we calculate the distance between each point to the other point. Here first we have an n by n matrix. Here we have 5 by 5 matrix for this. 1 comma 1, the distance between 1 and 1 is 0, it's sure, right? And for 1 and 2, the distance is 10 minus 7, it's 3. And we do that 10, and after that for 1 and 3 it's 18. Like this we create a proximity matrix, and after this what we do is we see what is the smallest distance in this matrix. We can see here we are having the 3 and 3 as the smallest distance, that is the distance between 1 and 2. So what we do is we group them, we merge them into a single one. And after that what we do is again we again calculate the proximity matrix. Here now in before data we are having 10 7. Now we have taken it as 10. We can this is based on the linkages, what I have told before. Based on the linkages we do this. Here we can take it as 10, and the minimum point is 7. We can do that also, and if we want to take average we can take that also. It is based on our wish on which we are taking, which we are grouping. Now if we are having like this, and after this we again create the proximity matrix, and again we see what is the shortest distance. Now if we can see, the shortest distance is between 3 and 5, it's 7. 7 is the shortest distance in this whole matrix. So we merge 3 and 5. And after that similarly we calculate the proximity matrix again, and we group 1 to 4. And similarly, after performing several steps like this, we get a single cluster where we stop. Linkages, we are having basically single linkage, complete linkage, average linkage, and we also are having Watts method that I would be talking. In single linkage, what happens is we take the minimum distance between the points. Like for suppose we are having 10 and 7. There, if we consider single linkage, then we would take 7. And if we are having complete linkage, then we would take the maximum distance between the points that we have taken previously. We have taken 10, so we took the complete linkage. And in average linkage, what happens is we take the average distance between the points, between each of the points. And in Watts method, instead of taking the distances, we take the square of the distances, and it is similar to the average linkage. Dendrogram. It is a tree-like diagram, records the sequences of merges or splits. More distances of the vertical lines in the dendrograms means more distance between the clusters. Before we have seen that the merging happens. Now this dendrogram, what it does is it records every merge, and it draws a tree-like diagram. If the vertical length is more, then the distance between the clusters is also more. Now we can set a threshold distance and draw a horizontal line of the threshold, and we can consider number of clusters that we want. We generally take what we take is the the tallest vertical line for in where we can have a threshold line. Here we can see that this is the tallest lines. These are the tallest lines. So we take the threshold Euclidean distance to be 200, and we have now 5 clusters, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 clusters that we can group this data into. The hierarchical clustering solves the problem of choosing the number of clusters in beforehand that we have in k-means clustering. After this, principal component analysis. What is principal component analysis? Principal component analysis is a dimensionality reduction technique, and it's a visualization tool. Remember that it's not a feature selection tool. Here we have PCA estimator to do our work easier in Scikit, where it finds the PCA components and the variance. Here, I mean, variance means the variability up to which the data points are there. For mathematical intuition, here are the below steps. Take an average. We are having the data. Now, after we are having the data, let us suppose we are having data of 2 features. Now, we are having the data of 2 features. We take the average of each of the feature and take the center. Like for suppose now we are having the 2 features, Gini 1 and Gini 2. We take the average of this point, average of these points, and average of these points. Now what happens is, when we take the average of first feature, it lands up onto this axis, and when we take these features average, we land up here somewhere. And when we have now we have to take the center of the whole data. By this we get the center of the data. And after having the center of the data, what we do is we shift this point to the horizon to make our analysis simpler, to say that. After shifting this data, we see that the data points here, the distance doesn't change. We just shift this point to the center. That's it. After that, what we do is we take a line. We take a line that would pass through this horizon, which is the center of the data, and we see that which line is the best fit for this point. The best fit line in PCA is described by maximizing the distances of the points from the horizon, squares of the distances from the horizon. That is, we are having the data here, right? Data points. What we do is we project these points onto this line, and we take the squares of this. Now we get, for this point we get d1 square, and for the next point we get d2 square. Similarly, we get all the 6 point squares, and we add up these squares. If for which line this is maximum, when this line goes this side to this side, then the distance automatically increases. So it is the maximizing here, for which we see that the maximizing line, maximizing distance is the best fit line for us. Here you can see that it is nothing but the square distances that we have done before. It is the eigenvalue for PC1. PC1 is the line that we have drawn here. And after this, if we square root that, we get a singular value for PC1. And the square root of the eigenvalue of PC1 is called singular value for PC1. It is the same thing that I have written here. After this, we can draw another, that we are having 2 features, so we can draw another PC2 line. This BC2 line can be drawn very simply without any uh, further calculations. We can just take the orthogonal line for the PC1, and we can calculate the distances, and we can maximize the distance, and we get the PC2 line. Anomaly detection. What is an anomaly? It is the process of identifying unexpected items or events in datasets which differ from the normal items. We have anomalies in our data that rarely occur. Here we assume that the anomalies are rare. Generally, they are rare. So only they are called anomalies even. Um, their features differ from normal instances significantly. It is compulsory. It is very obvious that the anomalies have a different kind of features that a normal instincts have. For detecting the anomalies in the data, we have an algorithm called isolation forest. It is an algorithm to detect outliers, wherein it returns the anomaly score of each sample. It is based on the fact that anomalies are data points that are few and different. It is a tree-based model. It selects a random split between the minimum and maximum value of the selected feature. It classifies whether observation is an outlier or not. And now we have the outliers or not. We can in the isolation forest we have two parameters: n estimators and contamination. Contamination is the thing that we need to specify in particular, because if we are having 10,000 observation, and if we want 100 data points that are dissimilar, I mean that are anomaly to the other data, then we specify that percentage in the contamination parameter. And after that we can create a visualization which highlights the outliers. uh, here Here you can see that we can create this kind of visualization, wherein I get the anomaly scores. Here the anomaly scores go nearer to negative values, so that it means that this is an outlier region wherein anomalies are there. That's all for today. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to this lecture. Thank you so much.